Welcome, everybody, to the Black Prospector Show. I am here today with another story. And this story today comes from someone very, very special and important to me in my life. And also, it is about someone that is very special and important to me in my life. So I have to get this interview done as soon as possible because this was one of the reasons why I wanted to do this particular type of show. Everyone, let me introduce you to the audience. Well, first, let me just introduce myself to people who may not necessarily know, all my tens of viewers out there. But we're just going to call myself Dev Tumbleweed, or you can see Furious Styles down there. And the reason why I take Furious Styles and the reason why I also take James Evans as kind of a persona is because of the impact that those black men in Hollywood had on the type of man and dad that I am today. But there are also some other men in my life that have had that same kind of impact. Just everybody knows it's easier to hide up under Furious Styles and James Evans, but it's a lot harder to hide under the name of Bill. And so today I'm going to introduce you to a dad named Bill, but I'm going to have to introduce you to Bill through his daughter, Dana. Now, for history, Dana and I go way back. She's my longest running friend. And I'm not like my little kids that say, oh, I got a friend. And it's like, really? Well, what's their name? I don't know. I just met. No, Dana and I go back all of our lives meeting in elementary school. And so all these years later, here we are. We still tighter than pantyhose, 2 sizes small. Going back to our favorite show, Good Times.
Good Times.
We've been through good times together. We've been through watching Jesse and Angie, and I forgot the other chick name on All My Children at school every day. But during those formative years, when I met her, I'll never forget meeting this gigantic man. Now, mind y'all, I'm a little kid. Now, I'm a little kid. I wasn't trying to have no real girlfriend or nothing, so it's not like this is high school. But I'm this little kid, and I knew Dana, but then she came to my church. And imagine I'm knee-high to a grasshopper, and I see this guy that I have to look up at. And he was a giant. And what I would later on learn as we would end up, Dana and I went to elementary school together. We later went to the same high school. So it really have only been 2 years through our entire, if we exclude college, through our K through 12 education that we weren't in the same school. And so I got to know her dad in high school, and he used to take us to school. And that was when I learned that this giant was very much a gentle giant, but he was also a very manly man and personified the type of black man that I want to highlight on this show. So that's on how we got to this point, and we're going to walk through that. But first, Dana, I would like for you to introduce yourself, please.
Okay, so my name is Dana, and as Furious Styles has already told you, we've been friends, I believe, since 1977, second grade. I know, Shokes Elementary.
Right.
But even though we've been friends, I consider Furious Style more as a brother because of all of the years and all of the experiences we have been through. So it is truly a pleasure and a blessing to be able to be a part of this wonderful, wonderful show. And I'm proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. And I told Dana before we started that she is the only woman that will be allowed to show up on this show because we are a show all about Black masculinity. And I feel that Black women have enough spaces on their own. This is one we're going to have on our own. However, I need Dana to kind of tell why she's the special one that's on this show. And I'll just kind of quickly say, and then I'll move it over to her, is that, again, this is every Black man has a story. So why am I starting out with a Black woman on here telling a Black man's story? Well, we're going to get to that. But first, Dana, would you please tell me a story?
Okay, so the very first story I will tell you is about my dad. And that's the person you mentioned as Bill. So I can go back to when I was a kid, and I can remember I probably was 8 or 9, And I remember my parents were struggling, although I didn't know they were struggling because that was like sheltered from me and my brothers. But my family was struggling financially. And I can remember Detroit Edison, which is now DTE, but Detroit Edison came to my door and they knocked on the door. And the guy said, "Oh, I'm here to turn your lights off. If you don't pay this amount, we're going to cut your lights off." So he was talking to my mom, but I overheard. And I came to the door behind my mom and said, "Oh, you better not cut my lights off because my dad is coming and he's like a real superhero. He's not going to let you cut our lights off." So the guy got scared. And then no quicker than I said that, and I looked outside, looked out the window, and my dad was coming around the corner. He had already went to Detroit Edison to pay the bill. But at that time, the payment didn't show immediately. So he had to wait 24 hours. So the Detroit Edison people told him, "You go home, sir. And if someone comes, you tell them to call and we'll give you an extension showing you paid." When my dad came in, I was like, "Uh-oh, sir, you better watch out because here he comes." And so my dad ended up having to pay the guy because he wouldn't call, but he paid. So he had paid the bill in person, came home and paid the bill again. And I heard the guy tell him, "Your daughter really thought that you was a real superhero, like a real superhero." And I was like, "He is. He saved the day because our lights didn't get turned off." And then, although my dad was happy and excited that I said that and I thought that about him, the manly part of him, his ego was still bruised because he wanted a shelter. And as a man, he wanted to make sure he could always take care of his family. So that's my first story.
Wow. Well, like I said, I remember looking up at this giant of a man. Can we see a picture of this giant of the man that was so intimidating to a lot of people, at least physically?
Okay, I don't know if you can see. My dad was 6'1.5", and I would say probably 235, 240. So of course, as a kid looking up at him, he looked super tall. That was one.
Mm-hmm. He was only 6'1.5".
6'1.5".
Seriously, I mean, and we've never talked about this before, y'all. So this isn't for effect. Yep. I would have sworn your father was at least 6'3" or 6'4".
Oh, 6'1.5". Maybe at the most 6'2".
Wow. Wow.
But to us, he was super tall. Like he could always touch the ceilings. Was ducking in the house to get through. So yeah. Yeah. Wow. I give him 6'2".
You give him 6'2"?
I give him 6'2".
Good. Some of us guys usually we add about a quarter of an inch on it because I'm like 5'11" and 3/4, but I give myself 6 feet. So it's all good.
For sure.
Wow. Well, the reason why, I think it's good that we see a picture. I am heavily into, and I'm being influenced even more. It's making me bold. I'm probably going to give him credit to helping me finally be committed to starting this show that I've been wanting to do for so long. Dr. T. Hassan Johnson. And definitely check out the brother's YouTube channel, people. But the thing about, I guess this is time to tell people to like and subscribe, but feel free to do that. But like and subscribe to T. Hassan Johnson's channel as well on Black masculinity. But one of the things that he points out is that Black men sometimes no one even knows our name, let alone what we look like. And so I was watching one of his videos today where he made mention of the play A Raisin in the Sun. And in at least the movies, and I don't recall in the play per se with Lorraine Hansberry and what she originally wrote, but when we get to some of the movies that would be made off that play later on, you see a Black family that working their way up out of the projects or ghetto, and yet they were doing it off of his life insurance check. He passed away, and they were, and it never dawned on me that was exactly the case. We never even see the man that really this story, everything that they're about to progress to in life is because of what he built before he passed away. And so I think it's always important for Black men to be able to see, for people to be able to see them, because oftentimes in movies and in other places, we aren't seen at all. So thank you for showing us that picture. And now let's kind of fill it in a little bit more about Bill. So, give me another story about your dad when you were, it sounds like you were a young girl at that time. Let me jump now. When I knew you, well, of course I knew you a long time, but into your teenage years, do you have a story about your dad in your teenage years?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Before we get to teenage years, I can tell you one more story. This was when I was 11.
Okay, go ahead.
And I was on our way home walking from Schultz. I had you were safety patrolman. And
somebody remembers my glorious safety patrolman. Yes.
Patrol, keeping us safe.
Are you my girls? Are you my girl? Yes.
And I was walking down the street, walking down Myers. And the first guy that I was really feeling at school, you know who he was. And we was walking down the street and I was liking him. We was quote unquote going together. And he was playing with me and he picked me up and threw me in the mud. And my dad was a semi-truck driver. So he used to park his truck at Kroger's right there on 6 Mile and was riding down the street. And he came right down the street just in time for the guy to pick me up and throw me down. And I had on a pink and black corduroy set and some pink and black shoes. And when he threw me in the mud, I was covered in mud. And my dad pulled his car over. And I was getting up off the ground, was ready to fight, because you know I would fight, was ready to fight. And I said, oh, you about to get it, because here come my daddy. My daddy told the boy off. He's like, you keep your hands off my daughter. Put me in the car, put him in the car, and went to his house, rang the doorbell, and talked to his family, his mom and dad, and said, I don't appreciate it. I don't put my hands on my daughter like that. I don't want him to put his hands on her. So you need to get your son and keep him in check, because I don't allow people to abuse my child. And then we got back in the car and I was good and embarrassed because I was liking him. But I didn't want to tell him, no, Daddy. I kept saying he was playing. He was like, we don't play like that. And then I got a good lecture on, you don't allow people to take advantage of you and abuse you. You don't allow people to put their hands on you like that. That's not play. That could have hurt you. You got up dirty. You went down clean. You came back dirty. That's not what you're supposed to do. That's not how ladies act. And that's not what ladies accept. And I was like, okay. And to myself, well, can't he be my boyfriend tomorrow though? Said, no,
can we still go together?
Right. Even though he threw me down, he said no. And then I really got a lecture. He said, you missed the point. He put his hands on you. That's not what we accept. You're my daughter. I don't put my hands on you. And no, you don't let no other guy.
Wow.
I always remember that.
You know what your father really meant to tell them, right? Let me just tell you. Your father really meant to tell them that really you don't get treated that way because I was supposed to be the guy to marry you. Because we look at families. I mean, we could have had like the perfect arranged marriage because
your mom used to say that to me all the time. Exactly. You're gonna be my daughter-in-law. You're gonna be my daughter-in-law.
Yes.
And she treated me like that.
Yes. So. And they treated me as well. I just have to tell the truth, shame the devil. No woman I ever dated, and certainly my in-laws to this day treats me the way that your family treated me. And that I'll tell my story a little bit later when that was proven. But that let's go back for a second, because your dad being that protector, your dad basically making sure a guy shows you respect. And being willing to step out there when there are a lot of guys, especially today, that just wouldn't want to get involved. So let's go backwards for a moment. Where was your dad from? What kind of man was he that got him up to that point that by the time you as a little girl viewed him as Superman? Where did Superman begin?
Superman was born in Florida. Actually, Superman was raised by his grandparents. His mom was a nurse. His dad was actually a criminal.
Really?
He was known in from Pompano Beach, Florida. So back in those days, my dad was born in 1933. So back in those days, nobody fooled with my granddad. True story.
Wow.
And my dad picked cotton, but he didn't pick cotton when he was with his father. When he was with his grandmother would pick cotton while he was in school. And then when he came out of school, he would go pick cotton for her or whatever other things they were picking. Like also he picked watermelons. So my dad didn't eat watermelon because he ate too many. And he said that he didn't like the way they taste. He's saying too many. He could pick a good one, but he would not eat it because he said that he was tired of them and that was not a part of his life that he really enjoyed doing. So he wouldn't eat them.
Do you know how long he picked cotton, or when did he stop? Because I mean, now we're talking. I hate to say the second cotton picker on our show, but I mean, this is the second man that I've heard picking cotton when we normally think this is something Black folks did in the 1920s and 30s.
He picked cotton until he graduated from high school. And as soon as he graduated from high school and turned 18, he got drafted. Yeah. So he got drafted and was in the Army. He did his term in the Army. They came when he got home from his graduation, because he graduated in June. His birthday was in June. When he graduated, actually his birthday is June 16th, the day before yours. But when he got home from his graduation, he turned 18 like 2 days later, and he woke up to the draft notice. Somebody brought it to the door to draft him to his grandmother's house. Wow. And then I think he left like in September, and then he served, and he actually was in the Korean War. I believe it was the Korean War, yeah.
Wow.
And he served, but he did not like it at all. He hated it. And after he did it, he just said that was not something he wanted to do, and he was chosen or drafted to do it. And if he could have figured out a way of not doing it, he wouldn't have did it. But his grandmother, who was a law-abiding citizen, said, they came here for you, and you got to go. So he went, not wanting to displease his grandma or disobey her. He went, but he hated it. And then when he came back, he served like 3 years total. When he came back, he moved from Pompano because he said he didn't want to be in Florida in case they wanted to come back again. They was going to have to find him in a different place. So that's when he came to Michigan.
Did he just come? Did he already have relatives up here, or did he?
We had relatives. My uncles, his uncles actually were here. He had 2 uncles up here. So he came and moved up here.
Okay.
And then while he was up here, started dating people, got married, had my brother, William or Billy. And then that marriage lasts for, I think it was 4 years, 5 years. They got divorced. But met my mom while he was going through the divorce.
Okay.
So, and that's how he got here.
So did he ever tell you any stories about what it was like to grow up down in Florida? Especially, I think a lot of times Florida gets overlooked when we think of the South, especially, me and you, our generation, we hear about the racism in the South. We only relegate that to like Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. Florida kind of gets the free pass from our generation because we associate it more with Disney World and tourism than racism. But now that we go back, we're able to look at Rosewood and some of the other places. Florida has some serious issues with race. Did your dad ever share any stories about that?
He did. They did have issues with race, but my dad was very smart in math. And so some of the stuff he got overlooked because he was smart in math. So they considered him to be able to be a smart person that could add and subtract and have that stuff together. So a lot of the stuff, when it came to racism, for instance, he got accepted into Bethune-Cookman College. A lot of them, that was unheard of. And he went one semester in Bethune-Cookman, but he was able to do that semester before he had to go to the Army.
Wow.
Yeah.
I thought your dad went to college longer than that. Really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You
Yep.
know, let me share this story while we're at this point. I do remember one time. I don't remember what was going on at the job your father was working. And I don't remember my mind, I'm getting old now myself. I don't remember if you shared this story or if I was in the car when he shared this story, but it was something going on at a job that he was working and they wanted him to call them either sir, I think it was to say yes sir or something like that. And I'll never forget one of y'all saying something about when he was younger he didn't call people sir or something to that effect. And basically, basically, look, I didn't call you as a white
Yeah.
person sir then, and I'm not going to call you as a white person sir now. He was basically
Right.
affirming, I am a man, and I am
Right.
not going to go back to where you thought you had me decades ago.
Right.
How did that story go? Because I'm sure I don't remember it completely.
He didn't play that. So he felt like when they were younger, he watched my grandparents say yes, sir. My grandmother particularly. So he wouldn't say nothing. He would just do his job and then leave. But he wouldn't answer to them by yes, sir, or no, sir. So he wouldn't talk. Sometimes he just wouldn't say nothing. He would do his job and be done, do it well, so they wouldn't have to ask him no question. And he would go home. But he said that he didn't like the fact that my grandmother had to say yes, sir, and no, sir to white people. So he definitely didn't play that. And if any kind of racism, like he had, I remember he was on a job and they caught themselves punishing him at this particular job, which was known to be racist, and with him being a truck driver. So I remember he was being punished, quote unquote punished, and he was a switch driver at Ford, but they had a contract through Ford. So they told my dad, you're not gonna pull the regular routes no more. And part of it was they were trying to move over to handhelds where my dad was a truck driver that did everything, the logs by hand. So they didn't give any training to how to work the computer or the handhelds. They just kind of gave them to him. So my dad was doing it, but it was taking him a minute to learn. He was like basically teaching himself. So they was like, oh no, we're gonna move forward. We're gonna let you do these switch drivers, one of the switch drivers. And they put him over there. And I remember he got paid $2.75 per switch. And the switch drivers, he would move the semis and the cars from one parking lot of Ford to another one. Mm-hmm. He got $2.75 per trailer that he moved. He could work anytime from 5 in the morning to 11 at night. And they said, that's all we gonna pay you, right? So one of the bosses that he was okay with said $2.75, he got kids, to raise. That's not going to be enough money. So he gave him a commission, like a base of $400. And then he would get the $2.75 for how many he moved. And so my dad got up at 5. He said, I could be here at 5. They said, yeah. He went to work at 5 in the morning. From 5 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock in the morning, my dad had moved 500. Wow. When they finished that year, my dad made 100 plus. And then they stopped him from being the switch driver. And he was like, no, this is what I want to do. I don't have to worry about your handheld. You told me to calculate it. And then they tried to cheat him. He had every trailer number wrote down. The position he put it in, it was lined up. He went to the store and bought his own books and had everything laid out. They had to pay him his money. So, true story.
Did your father keep meticulous notes, like writing in notebooks, logs, etc.?
He wrote in books when it came down. If he was if he was having a problem with like a supervisor or something, he kept his notes and they were meticulous. Like at 113, you said to do this. At 125, you said to do this. So I did them both, but I just want you to know that I wrote it at 113. You told me at 125. So, yeah.
And the reason why I ask, because this is yet another story that I'm hearing about older Black men taking notes and basically writing everything down.
Oh, yeah.
And it's something that again, it's a lost art that we have now, but it definitely sounds like it's necessary.
It is. Okay, can we pause?
Oh, absolutely.
1 second.
Okay. So your dad made $100,000. It's a lot of money. That's a lot of money now. You know, shout out to Kevin Samuels, who he knows a whole lot of black women trying to find a man in 2021 making $100,000. Your daddy pulled down $100,000 back then. So y'all were living fat after that, right?
We were for a minute, for a little while. We were good.
Y'all
we didn't have DT. Look, DTE was not back at our door. I can tell you that.
You know, obviously, from we lived basically 2 blocks, but about a block and a half away from each other. And me being like my dad, I know people by their cars. So I think when we met, didn't y'all have a big Buick? Did y'all have a Buick? Was it like an electric 225 or something like that?
That's exactly what it was. And it was yellow.
Boom, got it.
Yellow.
So I remember your dad always had GM cars, number one. That was something. Then y'all had some Fords thrown in there as well.
Yeah.
But
he was a GM Cadillac man. That's what he wanted.
So as a little kid, I remember that.
Yeah.
And now let me ask this. Let's go back for a moment. What kind of dad would you say your father was when you were a young girl, and anything that you want to share about your siblings? Because he was more than just you. And so, you know, what kind of dad was he?
So the kind of dad that he was for all of us, because I have 3 brothers. 2 brothers lived in the household with me though. Whenever everybody played sports. So he was the type of dad that made sure that we made it to our practices, football practice, basketball practice. For me, he encouraged me to play basketball, even though I wasn't that great. He still came to all my games and was coaching. So the picture I had showed was had a caption on the picture I put up, and it said, "You should have been the coach." And literally, that's what he was at everybody's game. He didn't even have to know you. Didn't have to, but he would call your number 24. That's it. Next time, go in there, put your head down, put your hand up. Next time, so he coached on the sideline for all my brother's games. Like, everybody knew him. The coaches knew him. The team knew him. Everybody. He also was a Boy Scout coach. So he took all of the boys in the neighborhood when my brother Tim was younger, and they used to play baseball up there at Shokes at the little field across from. He taught them how to hit the ball and throw the ball and catch the ball to all the kids. He also was very, very inspirational in my life. This is the best part I can say.